you considered the messages your outfits send? What do you think your clothes say about you? See, style is about the clothes, but it's not really about the clothes. Every day you make choices about what you're going to wear, but what are you communicating? Welcome to Above and Beyond Style. I'm your host, Maria DiLorenzo, and in 2019, I founded MFD Style, where I provide a unique, intuitive approach to personal styling for those ready to embrace a more meaningful look. With this podcast, I'll uncover key elements of where spirituality, psychology, and style intersect, revealing how you can make intentional wardrobe choices that reflect who you really are. So let me ask you, are you ready to transform into your authentic self? Then it's time. Come with me on this journey, and together we'll take your style above and beyond style. Well, hey everybody, welcome back to Above and Beyond Style. I am very happy to be reporting in for season 3 here. I hope you've started to enjoy these first couple episodes as we're talking about style pitfalls, or the things that get us off track and ultimately land us with a wardrobe or a closet full of clothing that we're not even really quite sure how we got there, but we're at this juncture now where we've got all these clothes or we've got all this stuff happening, and we're kind of needing to do a little recap on how did we get here? So this season, I'm trying to give you some common style pitfalls or things that get us off track, and I'm excited about today's topic. But before I dig in, I wanted to give you a little bit of a feedback, kind of report in, if you will, about my style resolution. Beginning of this season, I started to talk about how a style resolution can help guide or at least give us some common thoughts and principles to follow throughout the course of our style sort of story and journey to keep us on track. And I think that the style resolution for me was particularly poignant because I felt like it was a resolution that could carry me both in my personal life, my professional life, and even into my home life, which I'm going to share with you a little bit more about. So my style resolution for 2023 was really starting to focus on the concept and the word of vibrancy. And I really love this word for so many reasons, and I talked about this in the first episode, that it just sort of conjures up this whole kind of emotional response of energy, of fresh sort of dynamism. There's something really kind of powerful, and it has some movement connected to the concept of vibrancy that I really resonate with. And I feel like so much of this year for me is about uncovering my lost senses of vibrancy, and perhaps rediscovering some new ways that vibrancy can enter into my life that perhaps I've just really not looked at before or not even really tried to discover. So I've been thinking about the different ways, even just since the start of the calendar year, where I'm seeing little tweaks and threads of vibrancy starting to be woven into my everyday. And so I thought it might be helpful to talk a little bit about that. So when I think about the vibrancy in my wardrobe, I'll start with that. I have noticed I'm beginning to be drawn more toward color. Now, I'm somebody that really loves a very neutral wardrobe. I actually really enjoy kind of the classics, the staples, the pieces of clothing that I can wear time and time again, year after year, because they're so easy to mix and match among each other. And so that color palette has really grown to sort of favor neutrals like creams and whites and navy and an olive green. And I love a pure white. I like blacks, so I've really kind of loved this palette for many years. And I often am drawn to buying, items in those kind of classic staple colors, because for me, that has really shown and proven to be worthwhile for how I wear my clothes. And for my own style descriptor of being someone that likes a classic sort of with a flair, I love a little classic style, but has something a little special to it. I often find that if I get it in the kind of classic or neutral color, I'm able to experiment with different fabrications or, the garment construction. Maybe there's like a pin tuck or a little something special in sort of how the garment fits or flows on my body. So as I've started to kind of incorporate vibrancy, I've been interested to notice how my eye has been drawn toward really brighter colors. And I actually really love bright color. In fact, if you were to walk into my home, my dining room is very vibrant. I have a lot of bright color. The artwork in my dining room is very much reflective of that kind of energy, and bright pinks and greens and yellow and turquoise. And it's funny because I really enjoy that from the home decor perspective, but I don't know that I've really ventured too far into a really bright or colorful wardrobe. And as I've started to experiment with some new pieces, or even just start to think about what would I like to have in my wardrobe, I'm really kind of leaning toward brighter colors. So I've been kind of on this little kick around like bright pinks, really vibrant kind of Kelly greens or neon greens. And I've incorporated a lot more green overall into my wardrobe than I really ever have before. And it's funny because I don't really have an aversion toward green. It's not a color that I don't feel good about. But for whatever reason, when I have shopped or really curated my closet over the years, I don't often opt to go for green. I was really much more of a blue person. So as I'm starting to incorporate some of these greens, it's funny how much my mindset also gets connected with the whole concept of growth and the kind of the budding, seed that has burst through the surface of the soil and is now coming forth with the fresh green leaves and etc. It's funny to me how the concept of vibrancy, the color green, and the way green is sort of showing up in nature. It's not quite spring here yet in Boston, but we've had touches of it over the last few weeks, which has been kind of fun. But that concept of green and utilizing color has been one way that I'm noticing. I feel the vibrancy sort of interwoven into my daily life. And on top of that, and I've always been somebody who really likes to experiment with my clothing. And I often can do that most effectively through like pattern mixing and matching. And when I do this with different print combinations, I have often kind of leaned towards some classic partners like floral and stripes. And those have been something that I've often loved to kind of mix and match with. But more recently, and this is not groundbreaking, but it's just something I started to do more. I was noticing I was leaning more toward utilizing stripes with like the camouflage print, that kind of like olive green camo vibe. And I loved it because it's a sort of a fun twist on some feminine and masculine juxtaposition. For me, that has felt really vibrant because it's been something fresh and something different. And it's infusing me with some new sort of style inspiration. And I think that's one of the best ways, sort of to harken back to this concept of the style resolution, that it's keeping me on track with really curating a wardrobe that I really love. And as I've leaned into vibrancy and really starting to feel like, where is that showing up in my wardrobe? And I'm going to check in with you a few times on this over the course of this season to let you know how I'm doing with this. But it does feel like that concept of vibrancy is starting to give me a little bit more of that fresh perspective I was really looking for as I started out this calendar year. So I don't know how you're doing with your vibrancy check-in or your style resolution check-in, but I'd love to know kind of where you are and if you have any comments or thoughts around that. The last thing I'll mention about my little vibrancy check-in on a personal level, and I shared this with my email subscribers recently, but I have just sold my condo. And I won't give you the long sort of story about how I got to where I am in this present moment, but selling my condo was very much for me connected about an effort to really live in a more vibrant neighborhood and have a more vibrant lifestyle. And so it's been just a journey to get myself to this very moment where I'm grateful that I've sold the condo and I'll close in a couple months and will really be on my journey toward identifying this new sort of vibrant lifestyle. And for me, it's interesting to notice that that word vibrancy is carrying into some of the other ways that I'm making these decisions. And I think that's part of the reason why this podcast is so meaningful for me, because I want you to know and see all the different ways that there are intersections between our style, the psychology of our decision making, and the spirituality and sort of the life purpose aspect of our lives, and how they really all can kind of live in this interwoven space with each other. So vibrancy for me, as I'm doing this little check-in with you, feels very active. It feels very accessible to me in this moment. And it's been really fun to notice the ways that it's showing up. So anyway, I'm loving the way that that's kind of playing out. And I really wanted to share sort of the update with you. But let's dig into this week's topic around the style pitfall and the thing that can potentially get us off track when we are curating this wardrobe that we really love. And last week I was talking about buying for the sale. And I hope you listened in on that episode, because I really feel like it captured so many people's attention around this concept of shopping. And so this week I want to take it just a little bit further and maybe broadening it a little bit bigger to not just about shopping for the sale, but just scratching that shopping itch, period, right? And I think this is something that many of us can really recognize, that we get the shopping itch. It happens many times, perhaps throughout the calendar year. And I want to really help you see there are different ways that that shopping itch can land us with a collection of clothing that, again, perhaps isn't really speaking to our authentic self and our authentic expression of our style. And it gives us even sometimes some confusion about how these things landed in our wardrobes. And I think it's really natural. And again, I really hope these episodes normalize for you all these different behaviors that I'm going to talk about and how common they are. They're really common for me too. That shopping itch can be strong. And when we want something new and fresh in our closets, I'm always sort of interested in the ways that that incentive or that motivation may even be speaking to something else about ourselves. So let me say more to that. When I am working with a client, and sometimes I hear them talk about they get bored with their clothes, right? They've had perhaps this collection of items that they've been working from and drawing from, and they're just sort of at this stale kind of place with where they are with their clothes. And I think it's really natural, as I mentioned, to have an urge for something fresh and new. Heck, I just talked to you about that in regards to my home and my condo. I was feeling that desire and that need for something fresh and different. These are all really important urges and behaviors to pay attention to, because I think sometimes when we notice that, and I've had this conversation now several times with clients about their clothing, I find it's often an indicator of something symptomatic, if you will, of boredom in other areas of their lives. For example, maybe they're bored with their routine. Maybe they're bored just overall with kind of where they are in life and are feeling a bit stagnant. Maybe they're bored in their relationships. Maybe they're bored with their job or their employment or career path. Do you see how sometimes that concept of wanting to fill the void of stagnancy or feeling kind of bored, shopping is one of those behaviors? Again, I'm guilty of this too, but shopping is one of those behaviors that sometimes can be symptomatic of something larger going on for us internally. And unfortunately, no matter how much shopping you do, it often might not land you in a place where you're feeling like the itch has been really scratched, effectively or sufficiently. And I think sometimes when we fall prey to the shopping itch, if you will, and we start looking at different retailers and are walking through the mall or perusing different online inventory, I think sometimes it's a distraction for us. It's somehow letting our minds go somewhere else instead of really tackling kind of the root of the issue. And it's funny because, shopping in general, it can be an addictive behavior. I mean, I have certainly noticed at different points in my life where I've leaned too heavily into shopping. And I do this for a living, so you can imagine how that can be kind of a slippery slope. And it's been interesting to notice when those patterns show up, kind of what else is part of my story. And I'm asking you to kind of pay attention to that too, because sometimes when we really go toward the shopping itch and are kind of feeling that urge of wanting something new and fresh, there's often something more to that story than just, filling our closet with new clothes or new shoes or accessories. And it can be tough because, the fashion industry puts out new seasons of clothing however many times of the year, like at least 4 times a year, oftentimes more, depending on kind of the nature of the retailer. So something new is sort of always perpetually showing up. So it's an interesting behavior to notice that if we really tap into the rhythms of the fashion industry, we can get kind of locked into that behavior of perpetual shopping because something new is kind of always out there and always there for us to kind of check out and maybe see if it's the right thing. And inevitably, I wonder if it is really scratching the itch, because this is really how sometimes when I'm talking to clients and I see their closet just jam-packed with clothes, and they say to me like, gosh, I don't even know how I got here, right? We have that honest conversation about sort of buying for the sake of buying and leaning into heavily to the behaviors around shopping that can land us with clothes that I don't even know, did we really need in the first place? Or did it really give us that very satisfied feeling of newness and freshness that maybe we were craving? Or was it just the dopamine hit of like, ooh, getting something new and fun? And then it sort of wore off after a period of time. And then again, you feel that cycle, right? As I was talking about in last week's episode about buying for the sale, there is a incentive to kind of keep coming back. And so the shopping itch can be really powerful and really take us down a particular path if we're not careful of landing a whole bunch of clothes and pieces of accessories or shoes or whatnot in our wardrobe that I don't even know that we really need. So like last week, I want to give you a few techniques or strategies that can maybe help counter or maybe just balance the behavior, because I'm not somebody that likes to function in extremes. I don't feel like giving up shopping cold turkey is always the answer, or, going kind of gangbusters one direction or the other is really going to help moderate the behavior. I think it's about kind of carefully introducing these strategic and intentional behaviors that might help offset some of these strategies that take us down a road that maybe we don't want to go down. So I'm hoping this will help you. If you notice the shopping itch come up, that this will help counter and, again, play into that pause that I talked about before you go down the road of purchasing. So my favorite sort of counteraction to shopping is shopping my own closet and going to the things that I already own and really allowing myself some time to play. And I have to really kind of conjure up and reconnect with that inner child, that inner Maria that loved to play clothes and dress up and all the things that sometimes we like to do as kiddos. And for me as a little girl, I really enjoyed that. And I had fun with my dolls and whatever. And I have a lot of very positive memories around playing with clothes. And so when I give myself the permission and the time to go into my closet and literally just play, like put together things that I don't know, does this work? Could it work? How does this look? Does this feel fun? Just to give myself some time to express creativity and maybe even create new combinations that I had never tried before that give me that fulfillment of the something new or something fresh that I was seeking by trying to go shopping. So shop your closet. If you are somebody who is inclined to play or wants to tap into more play, I find this to be such a useful technique for when the shopping itch really starts to get strong and for me. The other thing I would suggest around shopping, if you really feel like you need to kind of go shop in some way, I find that if I can do it first with a secondhand shop or consignment, that at least, at minimum, I am perhaps putting something that was old or discarded or unwanted by someone else back into circulation by putting it into my closet. So if I really have to go down the road of like purchasing something, I try to go start with the secondhand consignment route. So on Poshmark or the Real or ThreadUp if I'm doing it online, or if there's a local consignment store or Goodwill or thrift store in my area, I will often take myself there first. And sometimes that will satisfy me enough to kind of go through that process. And I like to believe at minimum, if I'm going to buy something, I am doing this sort of earth-friendly, sustainable, conscious choice of at least putting something back into circulation into my closet. The other thing I like to do, if you have friends that are similarly sized or shaped as you, it is kind of fun to do a little swap. I don't know if you have friends that you could do this with, but I have done it before in the past years where sometimes I'll just call up a friend and I'll say, hey, are there like 2 or 3 things in your closet that you're kind of like bored with or over? And it's not that you want to give them up permanently, but maybe you'd let me borrow for a few weeks so that I can try them and use them and, play with them in my own closet, and vice versa. Maybe there's 2 or 3 things in my closet that I'm not feeling particularly attached to at the moment. I don't know if I'm really ready to give up yet, but I might let my friend borrow for a few weeks so that we can get that concept of like freshness or newness in our own closets without actually having to go purchase or buy anything new. So that's often been fun for me when I've had friends that are similarly sized. The other thing that I would encourage us to remember from last week's episode, I talked about the wish list and creating a wish list, whether it's on your phone or your device, or even literally having a physical list that you keep on hand with you. When there is something that you find interesting or fresh that you want to purchase, sometimes the mere just behavior of writing it down or putting it on your wish list, utilizing that like parking lot idea where you're not giving up on it, you're not necessarily moving to action to purchase it yet, but you are keeping it kind of in your reserve as an idea or something you might like to come back to. Maybe when the itch or the desire to purchase has worn off a little bit and you can think more clear-headed about that particular item and whether or not it really feels worthy of, entering into your wardrobe. So use that strategy. I can't encourage you enough about how effective that can be when we get that dopamine hit of like, ooh, I want something to buy new and fresh. Sometimes the wish list is the perfect strategy to help counteract that behavior or that urge. And the last thing I'll offer, that when you do really notice this urge kind of showing up and you've got the shopping itch, sometimes it's been really helpful for me to distract myself in other ways, meaning try to do something that is a self-care behavior or practice, a ritual of some kind, if you will. Everyone is different. Things that they prefer, strategies that they might lean into. But sometimes I find when I get the shopping itch, I can feel just as quote unquote satisfied if I go do something else for myself. And I mean this on the most like fundamental level of like self-care and self-love, and really tending to like, what do I need in this moment to help really fill that void or that urge or that something that shopping was potentially going to fill, that now I might be able to do for myself that doesn't require me to actually shop. So some examples. I really love a good face mask. It's something that I have enjoyed doing, particularly on Sundays. I love to do a face mask on Sunday. There's something really sweet and sort of savory about it, that I can put it on, put it on for 10 or 15 minutes. I can close my eyes. I might put on some nice music or a guided meditation that can kind of just take me someplace else for a little while. And it allows me to decompress, and it gives me this opportunity to kind of just relax and get back into my body. So whatever behaviors that might work for you like that, whether it's listening to a podcast, going for a walk outside, calling a friend, right? Like there's lots of different sort of self-care rituals that help us tend to ourselves and our needs that might replace, perhaps in a more healthy way, that shopping behavior to really tend to whatever we need in that moment. And again, this is not all to say that the shopping in and of itself is bad, or that we shouldn't do it, or that it's problematic. It's just that sometimes when we scratch that itch for shopping too often, this is how we land with clothes in our closets, or accessories and shoes or handbags, whatever your vice is when it comes to shopping. This is how we land with those items in our wardrobes that we're just sort of like, I don't know if I even really need this. I don't know why it's here. And it's distracting us from that ease that we want when we're getting dressed, our authentic self-expressions of who we are through our clothing. And you can see it gets murky when all of these other pieces start to kind of infiltrate our closets. So I'm hoping that by some of these strategies, like shopping your closet, going to play with the clothes that you already have, maybe shopping your friend's closet and borrowing a couple items, or when you really feel like you need to shop, go to that secondhand or the consignment store to put something that was formerly out of circulation back into circulation. Use that wish list or the parking lot list that you can reference back to and really see if that is something that you actually want to purchase. Or better yet, take a pause and go do something else for yourself. Something nurturing, so something that's really going to put self-care as a priority, and that will make you feel good about who you are and where you are in your life, so that maybe shopping won't be the answer to all of life's problems in the moment. So I am hopeful that this was a good way that you can start to think about avoiding a pitfall, avoiding that common pitfall of the shopping itch, and maybe try some of these other strategies that are going to help you get back on track. So thanks for listening, everybody. It's always such a pleasure to have you here, and I'm so grateful, and I look forward to catching up with you next week. Hey there. I wanted to take this opportunity to tell you more about MFD Style, my wardrobe consulting business. I've been styling professionally for nearly 15 years, and it truly is my life's passion and purpose. In fact, my mission is to help you develop a confident and authentic signature style, breathe life into your existing wardrobe, and help you fill in with perfect, versatile pieces that are in line with your style and budget. And yes, all of this can be done both in person or virtually. This experience can transform your life. I have seen it happen countless times. And all you have to do is take that first step. Set up a free 30-minute consultation call with me, and we can start this journey together. You deserve to have a wardrobe that mirrors who you are, and I am so ready to help make that happen. You can find me on the web at mfdstyle.com. Thanks so much for listening today. If you enjoyed what you've heard, I would appreciate you taking the time to leave a review on the podcasting platform you're using and share this episode with others who you think might really enjoy these conversations about personal style. For more information all about MFD Style services, you can find me on the web at mfdstyle.com, on Instagram at mfd_style, where I post almost 5 days a week, or send me an email at maria@mfdstyle.com. I also have a weekly email I send to subscribers, so I will include the link to that sign up in the show notes. So until next time, friends, remember to love yourself and then love yourself some more.